you have found yourself in the very heart of the great Roman Empire. Most people know this era from beautiful movies featuring snow-white marble statues and the rulers' pristine togas. However, the true reality of the ancient metropolis was infinitely far from these glossy Hollywood images. In 80 AD, the Grand Flavian Amphitheatre, which we now call the Colosseum, opened in Rome. You receive a free ticket to this grand spectacle and joyfully head toward the massive stone arches. But you have no idea that this festive day will become the harshest ordeal of your life. With the first rays of the sun, the city transforms into a buzzing human hive, rushing toward the center of bloody entertainment. The air around you is instantly filled with the heavy, suffocating scents of cheap olive oil, sweat, and roasted meat. The deafening roar of 50,000 voices carries for miles around the colossal stone structure. A modern, pampered person would be shocked just by the sight of this seething, aggressive mass of people. Here, no one will care about your comfort, safety, or basic hygiene. You will find yourself inside a giant human press, operating at the limits of its brutal capabilities. Our channel invites you to fully immerse yourself in the terrifying world of smells, sounds, and tactile sensations of the Roman crowd. We'll walk this entire path from dawn to dusk to reveal the hidden underside of this great festival. You'll learn why a routine visit to the stadium turned into a real struggle for physical survival. Get ready to experience firsthand the unbearable heat, splashes of blood, and deadly crush in the dark corridors. It's time to reveal the shocking truth about why you wouldn't have lasted a single day among the Roman spectators. Find out all the details of this historical nightmare right now. The timeline of our nightmarish day begins early in the morning, around 6 a.m., when the sun is just peeking over the horizon. A massive crowd of poor people and commoners is already blocking all approaches to the monumental walls of the new amphitheatre. People are literally pressed up against one another in the narrow city streets, creating terrible traffic jams. The stone walls of the Colosseum, faced with travertine, glow majestically pink in the rays of the morning dawn. However, below, at the very foot of the building, a real battle is unfolding for the right to enter first. Rude curses in Latin can be heard, along with the cries of crushed children and the furious shouts of the guards. To get inside, every spectator must present a special clay token called a tessera. These admission tickets are distributed for free to boost Emperor Titus I's popularity among the common people. You clutch this small piece of fired clay tightly in your palm, which is damp with nervousness. The crowd behind you begins to press forward with such force that the lack of oxygen takes your breath away. The stone arches of the first tier seem like a saving gateway, but you still have to reach them. Brutal jabs of elbows into your ribs become the standard way of moving forward in this living mass. Before you lie the famous vomitoria, 80 monumental exits and entrances designed by Roman engineers. In theory, these passages were meant to ensure the quick and safe evacuation of huge crowds. In practice, however, in 80 AD, the system faced the uncontrollable chaos of human greed. People storm the narrow arched passages, paying absolutely no attention to those who have stumbled and fallen at their feet. The dark corridors inside the Colosseum are instantly filled with screams of fear and the dull thuds of bodies hitting the stone walls. The air here is stagnant, cold, and smells of the dampness of ancient dungeons. Having overcome this first obstacle, you finally emerge into the light of the spectator stands. Before your eyes unfolds the colossal bowl of the amphitheatre, divided into several clearly defined tiers. Rome's social hierarchy is plain to see here, defining each person's place in this life. The lower rows, clad in the finest marble, are reserved for senators, horsemen, and vestal virgins. You, however, as a mere spectator, are required to climb to the very top, to the wooden and stone benches. This ascent up the steep and slippery steps drains the last of your morning energy. You find your seat on the vast upper tier, where the poorest segments of Roman society sit. The conditions here are so harsh that they would shock any modern visitor to sporting events. You will have to sit on a hard stone bench that lacks any kind of backrest, The architects allocated a pitifully small space of just 40 centimeters in width for each person. You are forced to literally press your shoulders against your random neighbors on the right and left. Your knees press against the back of the head of the person sitting in front of you, creating unbearable, cramped conditions. It is nearing 8 a.m., and the Colosseum's stands are finally filling to their historic capacity. About 50,000 people create such a level of noise that you can no longer hear your own thoughts. The building's architecture is designed so that any sound is amplified many times over and echoes off the opposite walls. This constant, monotonous rumble pounds on your eardrums, causing a severe headache right at the start of the day. The people around you begin to whistle, clap their hands, and demand that the promised spectacles begin immediately. The first attendants enter the arena below and begin to level the clean yellow sand. You look down at the elite of Roman society, seated in the utmost comfort and safety. Senators settle into their spacious marble chairs, brought by slaves specifically for the festival. Their snow-white togas with wide purple stripes gleam in the rays of the rising sun. Servants scurry among them, offering refreshing drinks and light snacks on silver platters. This stark contrast between the upper and lower tiers stirs a deep resentment among the poor. However, the empire's rules are harsh, and everyone must know their rightful place. Suddenly, a deafening roar of brass trumpets and horns rings out, announcing the arrival of the emperor himself. Titus I appears in the imperial box, and the entire crowd of 50,000 erupts in a unified frenzy of welcome. People jump to their feet, wave their arms, and shout slogans of praise in honor of the ruler. The energy of this vast gathering is charged with primal brutality and a thirst for real bloodshed. You realize that the mourning phase of your stay here has ended, and the main trials lie ahead. The sun climbs higher and higher, slowly beginning to warm the amphitheater's massive stone bowl. The air gradually loses its morning coolness, turning into a thick, stifling haze. You take a deep breath, but instead of freshness, you inhale only dust and the scent of thousands of strangers' bodies. The great show begins, one that will forever change your perception of ancient civilization. As noon approaches on this summer day in the year 80, the weather in Rome is breaking every possible temperature record. The air temperature in direct sunlight rapidly rises to a terrifying 45 degrees. The Colosseum's massive stone stands begin to function like a giant furnace, accumulating and radiating unbearable heat. You have no chance whatsoever to hide in the shade or find even a slight breeze. The skin on your face and hands begins to burn, covered with the first painful blisters from the merciless ultraviolet rays. The water you brought with you ran out long ago, and a dry, dusty taste fills your mouth. You look up hopefully, where giant wooden masts are secured above the top of the wall. By the emperor's order, experienced sailors of the Roman fleet must hoist the velarium, a massive canvas awning. This highly complex mechanism is designed to protect the stadium from the scorching heat and create a pleasant coolness. However, today, fortune has turned its back on the common people sitting in the uppermost tiers. The giant awning is stretched only over the seats of the senators, horsemen, and honored guests at the bottom of the arena. The plebs and the poor are left alone with the scorching sun, without any protection. The unbearable heat exacerbates another, even more dire problem with this grand architectural masterpiece. The Colosseum completely lacks permanent public restrooms for ordinary spectators in the upper tiers. When 50,000 people spend an entire day in the stadium, bodily needs become an uncontrollable nightmare. The Romans do not hesitate to relieve themselves right beneath their stone benches. Huge streams of urine begin to slowly trickle down the stone steps and tiers of the amphitheater. The liquid evaporates on the scorching stone, creating a suffocating ammonia-laden fog over the entire stadium. This foul-smelling filth flows unhindered from the upper rows, straight onto the heads and shoulders of the plebs standing below. The air becomes so thick and acrid that your eyes start to water profusely. The people around you habitually wipe their faces with the dirty hems of their robes or tunics. No one is outraged or makes a scene, for this is perfectly normal behavior for the Roman crowd. You feel these filthy droplets land on your own skin, triggering a violent wave of nausea. Modern concepts of personal hygiene are shattered here within the first few minutes of the midday heat. The situation is exacerbated by the fact that there is virtually no fresh air circulation in the stands. The Colosseum's high outer walls reliably shield the inner arena from any saving gusts of wind. You feel trapped inside a scorching cauldron, where every breath comes with great difficulty. Your heart begins to pound wildly in your chest, and a dangerous dizziness sets in. Many elderly people around you begin to lose consciousness from heat stroke and dehydration. However, a fallen body simply slides under the bench, where neighbors continue to trample over it. To somehow quench their thirst, the Romans drink warm, cheap wine diluted with murky water from dubious sources. This dubious drink is brought by street vendors who manage to squeeze through the dense rows of spectators. They shout their sales pitches right in your ear, demanding a sip of dubious liquid in exchange for a few coins. You hand over your last bit of money for a sip of that sour wine, hoping to ease your suffering. However, the alcohol, combined with the intense heat, only accelerates the breakdown of your body. Your coordination is impaired, and your sense of reality begins to gradually slip away. The stone benches without backs turn, sitting into a form of torture for your spine and muscles. Due to the constant strain, your back begins to ache so badly, it feels as if hundreds of tiny needles have been stuck into it. You can't lean on the person behind you because they'll immediately punch you in the shoulder. 40 centimeters of personal space force you to sit in an unnatural hunched position. Your muscles gradually cramp up, but changing your posture in this crush is impossible. Physical pain becomes your constant and faithful companion on this festive day. You gaze at the scorching blue sky overhead, dreaming only of a drop in temperature or a sudden rain shower. But the sun continues to mercilessly scorch everything living within this grand stone circle. The sand in the arena below begins to glisten blindingly, reflecting the sun's rays straight into your eyes. You are forced to squint constantly, causing your headache to intensify to unbearable levels. At that moment, the hidden truth about the Colosseum becomes crystal clear to you. This place was not created for leisure, but to demonstrate absolute power over human bodies. Exhausted by the heat and stench, the crowd gradually begins to lose its human form, turning into a wild beast. People become aggressive, short-tempered, and ready to pounce on one another over the slightest trifle. Any careless movement by a neighbor is taken as a personal insult and a reason for an immediate fight. You curl up into a ball, trying to be as inconspicuous as possible among this explosive human mass. But ahead of you lies the most terrifying spectacle of the morning program, one that will make the crowd roar with delight. The bloody games in the arena are finally entering their most active and brutal phase. It is time for the morning segment of the entertainment program, known in the Roman calendar as Venatio. This is a grand and incredibly bloody hunt for wild, exotic animals brought from all corners of the empire. The arena's underground elevators and hatches burst open with a roar, releasing hundreds of hungry lions, leopards, and bears onto the sand. The beasts, blinded by the bright sun after the long darkness of the underground, begin to dart about the arena in fear. The crowd in the stands erupts in a wild primal roar, welcoming the arrival of the new participants in this deadly spectacle. The air is instantly filled with the scent of wild animal fur, fear, and impending death. Bestiari, specially trained fighters armed with light spears and hunting knives, step out to face the frightened predators. A brutal and uncompromising slaughter begins, where neither side will show mercy. You watch as a massive African lion rips open the chest of a careless warrior with a single swipe of its paw. Hot blood spatters onto the clean yellow sand, instantly staining it dark red. The spectators around you go into a frenzy, shouting encouraging slogans and demanding even more killings. The deafening roar of thousands of voices literally pins you to your stone bench. The scale of the madness unfolding on this day in the year 80 is beyond the imagination of any modern person. In just a few hours of the morning program in the Colosseum arena, thousands of rare and beautiful wild animals are killed. The smell of fresh blood mixes with the stench of the excrement of terrified beasts, creating an unbearable atmosphere. This ghastly mixture of odors, under the influence of 45-degree heat, rises upward, reaching the very top tiers of the stands. You begin to feel dizzy from this concentrated stench of death and slaughter. But the Roman crowd only grows more frenzied, demanding that this bloody feast continue. Due to the incredible brutality and intensity of the fights, blood and chunks of flesh literally fly in all directions. The Colosseum arena is designed so that the front rows of spectators are dangerously close to the fighting. Fine sprays of hot blood and blood-stained sand reach all the way to the lowest, most elite tiers of the amphitheater. Senators and high-ranking officials of the empire are forced to constantly dodge this horrific biological fallout. Many of them leave their seats of honor with their togas completely soaked and ruined. This shocking fact clearly demonstrates that death was just an arm's length away here. Spectators around you begin to pull out their provisions to snack right in the midst of this unending slaughter. They chew on stale bread, salted olives, and pieces of dried meat, never taking their eyes off the arena. The sight of torn bodies and the moans of dying gladiators do absolutely nothing to dampen their hearty appetites. The man to your right offers to share a piece of fatty cheese that gives off an unpleasant odor. You politely decline, feeling your stomach clench in a wild spasm of sheer horror. For these people, death has become a familiar, mundane part of their everyday urban culture. Suddenly, huge elephants and rhinoceroses are released into the arena to fight against enraged bears. The ground beneath the Colosseum begins to shake noticeably from the running of these gigantic land monsters. The heavy thuds of their bodies against the wooden barriers of the arena cause the audience to freeze in a moment of anticipation. You see a rhinoceros pierce a huge brown bear right through with its horn. The deafening roar of the wounded predator drowns out even the general hum of the stands, making you shudder. The animal world of an entire continent is being destroyed for the whim of the capital's frenzied crowd. The Romans' peculiar sense of humor is evident in the way they force the animals to perform absurd and cruel stunts. Monkeys dressed in gladiator armor appear in the arena, fearfully striking each other with small wooden swords. The crowd erupts in Homeric laughter, appreciating this cynical parody of real human battles. To you, this laughter sounds like a sound from the very depths of true hell, devoid of any compassion. You realize that the value of human and animal life here is absolutely zero. In the 1st century AD, empathy was considered a dangerous and unacceptable weakness. The heat continues to intensify, and the scorching air above the arena begins to shimmer noticeably in thin waves. The smell of blood becomes so strong that it seems you could touch it with your hands. Servants try to spray the stands with water mixed with cheap saffron perfume essences. This chemical mixture of scents only exacerbates the overall suffocating atmosphere of this mad place. Saffron, sweat, urine, and blood merge into a single, unique scent of a Roman festival. Your clothes are already completely soaked in this foul-smelling filth, and all you dream of is cleansing. The morning slaughter of the beasts is gradually reaching its logical and bloodiest conclusion. The arena's sand has turned into a solid, filthy mess of blood, excrement, and body parts. The last surviving predators lazily roam among the corpses, paying no heed to the hunters' shouts. The trumpets sound again, signaling the start of the midday break in the festival program. But don't think that during this time you'll be able to rest peacefully or leave the stands. Ahead of you lies the darkest and most cynical spectacle of the day, intended to punish the empire's enemies. At noon, the famous midday break begins, which most respectable Romans prefer to wait out at home. However, the stands for the poor remain completely packed, for these people have no way to leave. The darkest part of the show begins, the public executions of criminals, known as damnatio ad bestias. Dozens of pale, emaciated people, shackled in heavy iron chains, are led into the arena. Among them are traitors to the state, runaway slaves, and followers of the new, forbidden religion of Christianity. The crowd greets their appearance with jeers, whistles, and a hail of rotten vegetables. The brutal executioners set about their routine work under the indifferent gaze of thousands of spectators, weary from the heat. The condemned are stripped naked, stripped of their last shreds of human dignity before death. They are tied with thick leather straps to tall wooden posts driven into the sand of the arena. You see fear and despair in the eyes of these unfortunate souls who understand the inevitability of their terrible fate. No one in this crowd of 50,000 feels the slightest pity or compassion for them. The Empire's system must clearly demonstrate what happens to those who violate its harsh laws. Predators are released from the underground cages once again, but this time they are the hungriest and most ferocious lions and leopards. The beasts have been kept in complete darkness, without food for a long time, to make them as aggressive as possible. The animals slowly approach the bound people, sniffing the scent of human sweat and fear. The first terrifying scream of a victim rings out as a massive leopard sinks its claws into the defenseless body. This cry of pain and despair echoes through the scorching stone stands of the great amphitheater. You close your eyes, but it is impossible to hide from these horrific sounds. At the same time, in the upper tiers of the stands, a free distribution of food begins on behalf of the generous Emperor Titus I. Special attendants start throwing tokens called tesserae into the crowd for sustenance. With these small pieces of wood, one can obtain a portion of bread, a piece of meat, or a jug of cheap wine. Heated by the sun and alcohol, the crowd instantly turns into a frenzied mass fighting for survival. People begin furiously punching and kicking each other in a bid to catch that coveted token. You find yourself right in the epicenter of this wild, uncontrollable brawl over a piece of bread. A powerful blow from a stranger's fist lands squarely on your cheekbone, causing bright sparks to flash before your eyes. You're knocked off your feet and fall onto the dirty stone slabs of the stands, soaked in urine. Several heavy feet, clad in rough leather caligae studded with steel nails, come crashing down on top of you. You feel a sharp pain pierce your body and realize you might be stuck here forever. The Colosseum claims the lives of dozens of people simply during these frenzied displays of imperial mercy. You muster your last ounce of strength to get back on your feet and avoid being trampled by this crazed mob. As you rise, you see that the executions in the arena below have reached their inevitable and horrific conclusion. The pillars are covered in blood, and beneath them lie only the mutilated remains of those who were still alive that morning. The smell of fresh entrails and dissected bodies rises in a thick wave, mingling with the aroma of roasted meat from the street vendors. This horrific mixture of smells finally robs you of the ability to breathe and think normally. You realize that you are inside a gigantic death machine that operates without stopping or pausing. But the Romans around you are merely smugly wiping their greasy mouths after a hearty midday meal. New slaves enter the arena, quickly gathering bones and body parts into large wicker baskets. They do this with such a matter-of-fact air, as if they were cleaning up ordinary trash after the city market. The sand is once again doused with water and covered with a clean layer of fresh yellow material from the underground storerooms. Soon, the most important, long-awaited part of today's program will begin, the very reason all these people have come here. This whole midday nightmare was merely a light prelude to the true art of Roman death. The crowd begins to gradually calm down, anticipating the appearance of their main idols and favorites. You look at the sun, which is beginning to slowly sink toward the west, having passed its midday peak. The unbearable 45-degree heat gives way to the thick, heavy, stifling air of a fading summer day. Your body is covered in bruises from the blows, your skin is sunburned, and your clothes are stained with other people's urine and dirt. You feel completely mentally and physically exhausted, on the verge of fainting. But the rules of this place forbid you from showing weakness or attempting to leave your assigned seat. You will have to sit through this insane marathon until the very end. no matter the cost to your health. A new, deep sound of heavy brass horns rings out, causing the entire audience to fall instantly silent and freeze. This signal means that the midday break is officially over, and it is time for the true heroes. Those whose names are known to every resident of the great city, young and old alike, are ready to enter the arena. The great gladiatorial battle begins, which will be the culmination of this mad festival of blood and sand. You gather the last remnants of your waning attention to witness the finale of this historic nightmare. The gladiator schools are ready to present their best fighters for this deadly show. The long-awaited noon arrives, turning into evening, as the main protagonists of the day enter the arena. The gladiators march solemnly past Emperor Titus's box, their armor gleaming. Their heavy helmets, adorned with bright feathers, blaze dazzlingly in the rays of the setting sun. The massive crowd of 50,000 erupts in a single deafening roar that makes the stone walls of the amphitheater tremble. You feel this sonic shockwave literally vibrating in your chest, making it impossible to breathe normally. The fighters raise their swords high, uttering the famous words of greeting to those doomed to a possible death. Pairs of gladiators spread out across the vast arena, taking their fighting positions on the fresh yellow sand. Before you unfolds the classic confrontation between the retiarius, armed with a trident and a net, and the heavily armored myrmillon. The fighters' muscular bodies are coated with a layer of special oil that glistens beautifully in the evening light. Blood begins to spill onto the sand from the very first minutes of these uncompromising and brutal duels. With a precise strike of his short sword, the myrmillo pierces the leather armor on his agile opponent's shoulder. A bright crimson stream stains the sand, triggering a new wave of wild excitement from the crowd surrounding you. The people around you begin to argue fiercely, place bets, and shout advice to the fighters. You feel like a grain of sand inside this mad human volcano, ready to explode at any second. The smell of fresh blood fills the scorching air once more, bringing back the morning's nightmare with renewed intensity. One of the gladiators falls to the sand, having lost his weapon and suffered a severe wound to his thigh. He raises his left hand, extending his index finger in the hope of receiving the coveted mercy from the crowd. The entire crowd of 50,000 falls silent, awaiting the final decision of Emperor Titus I himself. Thousands of people begin to point their fingers down or up, deciding the fate of the wounded fighter. You see this ominous forest of human hands, determining the line between life and death. The emperor agrees with the opinion of the bloodthirsty mob and coolly points his thumb down. With a precise, perfectly practiced movement, the victor plunges his blade straight into the throat of his defeated opponent. The body convulses, and yet another human life is cut short on this cursed yellow sand. The spectators erupt in applause, hailing the victor's skill and his composure at this decisive moment. You feel a heavy lump rising in your throat, and your consciousness begins to gradually shut itself off from this horror. For these people, a human death is merely high-quality content and a fitting conclusion to a festive day. Your modern morality finally capitulates before this ancient, primal reality of the amphitheater. To heighten the level of collective madness, the attendants begin tossing out new tokens for free, expensive wine. The crowd in the upper tiers once again turns into a wild, animalistic mass fighting over alcohol. A huge Roman behind you delivers a powerful elbow strike right to the back of your neighbor's head. The man falls forward, smashing his face against the stone edge of the next amphitheater bench. Blood from his nose begins to flow right at your feet, mixing with old urine. You realize that the fights in the stands are becoming no less dangerous than the official battles in the arena. The duels continue one after another, filling the entire space of the summer day, fading into the horizon. The arena's sand is already completely soaked with the blood of dozens of the best fighters from this gladiator school. Servants can barely keep up with carrying away the bodies and covering the new pools of crimson liquid with fresh material. The air grows cooler, but the stifling heat from thousands of bodies only intensifies, turning into a thick fog. A headache pounds against your skull with the frequency of a blacksmith's hammer. robbing you of the ability to perceive reality normally. You dream only of this drawn-out spectacle ending as soon as possible. You look at the Emperor's box, where Titus I smiles contentedly, watching the jubilation of his people. These free games have fully accomplished their primary political objective of strengthening his personal power. A well-fed, drunk, and entertained populace will not stage riots or demand lower bread prices. The hidden truth of this grandiose structure is that it is the perfect tool for social control. You have become an unwitting witness to how the state machine grinds lives down to maintain the empire's stability. This thought leaves a heavy, bitter aftertaste in your heat-weary mind. The day's final match ends with a spectacular double kill, as both fighters stab each other simultaneously. The crowd rises from their seats in unison, giving the longest and loudest ovation of the day. Brass trumpets sound a final, drawn-out blast, announcing the official closing of the Grand Jubilee Games. The sun finally sinks below the horizon, plunging the vast bowl of the Colosseum into thick evening twilight. People begin hurriedly gathering their belongings, preparing for a mass exodus from this stone prison. But it is precisely this moment that will become the most dangerous ordeal of your life. You realize that you have managed to survive the heat, the stench, the fights, and the bloody spectacles of this mad day. Your body is battered, your mind exhausted, but you are still breathing among these people. A massive crowd of 50,000 drunk and exhausted spectators simultaneously surges toward the narrow exits. You find yourself caught up in this living stream, which begins to move slowly toward the dark corridors. The final stage of our historical nightmare begins, where survival depends solely on blind chance. Prepare for the final battle for the right to leave this cursed place alive. Late evening falls, and the Colosseum is plunged into the dangerous, ominous darkness of the night of the year 80. Artificial lighting in the amphitheater's corridors is virtually non-existent, save for the occasional torch on the walls. A massive crowd of 50,000 people simultaneously tries to squeeze through the narrow passages of the vomitoria. You instantly lose control of your own body, finding yourself squeezed on all four sides. A living human tide carries you forward through the dark corridors, slippery with spilled wine and mud. Any awkward movement or loss of balance at this moment means certain death for you. The drunken and exhausted crowd of plebeians begins to display extreme aggression and panic. The people behind you are pushing with such terrifying force that your ribs start to crack under the pressure. You hear the first horrifying screams of those unfortunate souls who have stumbled and fallen onto the stone floor of the corridor. The living mass doesn't even try to stop, continuing to march mercilessly right over the bodies of their fallen comrades. You feel your feet stepping on something soft and yielding, and realize with horror the reality of what is happening. In these evening crushes at the Colosseum's exit, dozens of innocent people die every day. The air inside the enclosed stone tunnels becomes so hot and stifling that people begin to lose consciousness right on the spot. A fallen, unconscious body is instantly trampled and turned into a shapeless, filthy mess beneath hundreds of feet. You frantically try to keep your elbows pressed against your chest to preserve at least a little space to breathe. Panic engulfs your mind, erasing the last remnants of civilized human thought and logic. Your only goal now is simply to stay on your feet and make it out into the fresh night air of the city. Every meter of progress toward the exit comes at the cost of incredible, superhuman physical effort. The Roman guards at the gates make absolutely no attempt to regulate this frenzied human tide or help the injured. They merely ensure that the crowd does not riot or damage the building's architecture. Brutal blows with spear shafts to the heads of those trying to cut in line have become a common occurrence. You see the pale faces of people, illuminated by the flickering crimson flames of the wall torches. This scene seems like a living picture from the most terrifying circles of Dante's classical hell. Death continues to reap its abundant harvest in these dark labyrinths of the great Flavian amphitheater. Suddenly, a bottleneck appears ahead, caused by the fallen stretcher of some wealthy and noble Roman. A living wave of people from behind slams into your back with force, pressing you against the cold stone wall of the corridor. You feel all the oxygen being completely squeezed out of your lungs, and dark circles float before your eyes. At this moment, you are on the very brink of death, separated from it by only a fraction of a second. With a tremendous effort of will, you manage to push yourself away from the wall and return to the main current of the human flow. Salvation seems close, but the dark tunnels of the vomitoria seem endless and never-ending. The stench of sweat, fear, excrement, and impending death inside these corridors reaches its peak. Your tunic is completely soaked through with other people's sweat, and your face is covered in a layer of soot from the torches. You no longer feel the pain from your bruises and burned skin, for all your sensory receptors have shut down from the shock. Your consciousness functions in a state of pure, primal animal instinct for self-preservation. You simply move your feet in time with the movement of this frenzied mass, praying to all the known gods for salvation. This day has stripped away all your civilized veneer, turning you into part of this brutal mob. Finally, a saving large arch appears ahead, through which the stars of the Roman night sky are visible. Fresh night air rushes into the tunnel, bringing instant relief to your exhausted and scorched lungs. The living stream literally spits your battered body out onto the cobblestone square in front of the grand building. You fall to your knees right onto the hard stones of the pavement, breathing heavily and noisily from exhaustion. Dozens of equally exhausted, broken people lie around you, having managed to survive this evening's nightmare. The walls of the Colosseum rise majestically behind you, keeping silent about the cost of today's celebration. You look back and see servants beginning to carry the first bodies of those who died in the stampede out from the dark arches. These are men, women, and even small children who simply wanted to watch the emperor's free spectacles. Their bodies are loaded onto wooden carts to be secretly carted out of the city before morning. The Roman city administration does not like to spoil the festive statistics with such unpleasant and grim incidents. The hidden truth is that these victims are a perfectly normal, planned price to pay for the empire's greatness. The life of an ordinary person in the 1st century CE was worth less than a loaf of bread. You slowly get to your feet, leaning against the cold stone ledge of a nearby city building. Your whole body groans with unbearable pain, your head is splitting, and your hands tremble slightly from the stress you've endured. You realize that this day has forever divided your life into before and after this stadium. No Hollywood movie will ever again be able to deceive you with its beautiful, marble-clad images of the great Rome. You have learned the real truth, reeking of blood and urine, about the most popular entertainment of ancient civilization. This sensory history experience will remain with you in the form of scars on your body and in your memory. The chronology of this mad and terrifying day has officially reached its logical and nocturnal conclusion. You begin to slowly wander through the dark and dangerous alleys of the nighttime metropolis toward home. The Colosseum gradually disappears around the bends in the road, but its suffocating stench still haunts you. You manage to survive where many others lost their lives to the delight of a cruel crowd. This day has proven that modern humans are completely ill-suited to the harsh realities of the ancient world. The time has come to draw the final conclusions of our terrifying and incredibly candid historical journey. Our detailed immersion into the history of the Colosseum has clearly shown the true cost of ancient Roman entertainment. You have seen that behind the majestic marble facades lay a veritable hell of mud, sweat, and blood. Modern people, accustomed to comfort, safety, and hygiene, would not have been able to last even a few hours in that crowd. 45-degree heat, the suffocating stench of sewage, and the constant threat of physical violence broke people like matchsticks. The Colosseum of 80 AD was not just a stadium, but a gigantic test of the endurance of the human body and spirit. Survival in this stone cauldron depended not on your strength, but on blind and capricious fortune. The Roman Empire left us with great architecture, roads, and laws, but it also left us with lessons in absolute cruelty. This sensory history scenario helped us tear off the glossy Hollywood mask from the everyday life of the great ancient metropolis. Now, looking at the ruins of this grand amphitheater, you will feel more than just admiration for the engineer's craftsmanship. You will distinctly smell the scorching sand, the blood splattered on the senators' togas, and the screams of those doomed to death. Real history is always much more complex, grittier, and more interesting than the pages of school textbooks on the ancient world. We hope this virtual journey has made you look at the value of human life in a new light. If you enjoyed this deep and candid exploration of the hidden secrets of the past, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Like the video, leave your comments below, and share it with your friends. Let us know, would you risk your health to attend Emperor Titus's Grand Games? Many more amazing, shocking, and incredible journeys into different eras await you. Thank you for your attention. Stay with us, and we'll see you soon on Sensory History. Our chronological tour has come to an end, but the great mysteries of history are just beginning to reveal themselves.